Hey everybody, I'm Cathi Barker from Software Solutions, and I have to share with you one of my new favourite apps, Microsoft Whiteboard. Microsoft Whiteboard is great because it integrates with Microsoft Teams, but it also can be run independently. Microsoft Whiteboard is a great teaching and learning tool. It's also a great brainstorming tool. It's whenever you want to collaborate with others or share with others an interactive whiteboard. So let me take you for a journey. First of all, if you go to office.com and you go to your app launcher, you'll find that Microsoft Whiteboard is one of the applications that's generally listed with Microsoft 365. You can also download it and have it as a desktop version, but let's just go with the online version. If I choose to create a new whiteboard, I just click this option here. Immediately I'm given a variety of templates that I can choose from. There's templates that complement brainstorming. There's templates that complement problem solving. And the one I use a lot is learning, when I'm teaching subjects to learners. But let's just start with, say, a blank canvas, and that's this button here. The next thing you can do is you can actually click the word whiteboard and you can give it a name. So I'll just call it whiteboard example. But give it a name and it will automatically be saving as you make changes to your whiteboard. So one of the things I might like to do is change the background look of my whiteboard. I'm first of all going to click this little cog here, which is the settings menu. And if I go into the settings menu, I can format the background. I can choose a color, for example, and I can also choose whether I want dots, squares, graph paper, narrow ruled lines, wide ruled lines, etc. But I'll go back to dots and I might keep it on white. And I'll go out of here. So format your background. Now let's create something. You've got a little toolbar down here. And so what I might like to do is bring back those templates. And I might want to add 1 or 2 or 3 of the templates to this just one whiteboard canvas. So I can go for these 3 dots, which is more options. And I've got a templates option here. And I'm returned to the collection of templates. One of my favourite ones is learning, as I mentioned. And I might decide to choose this one so I can preview it. Gives me a little bit of a preview, a little bit of an explanation of when you would use this, and I can then choose to use this template. I've now got this mouse pointer wanting to know where do you want to put it. So let's say I want to just put it straight in the middle. And here's my template. I can zoom in just by wheeling forward on my mouse if you've got a mouse with a wheel, and wheeling backwards. I also have the option to use these zoom controls here to zoom in and zoom out. But you may notice also that it mentions Alt minus and Alt plus. So if I go Alt plus, I'll zoom in, and Alt minus, I'll zoom out. If I want to fit to the screen, I'll simply click this button and it fits it to the screen. So get it to a size that you're comfortable with. So I'm just going to roll my mouse forward a little bit. Now this particular template has 2 circles and some objects. I can drag these and I can pop them over here. So these are just little shapes where people can add text. And so this particular template really wants to look at 2 topics and where they differ and where they interact. I like the alignment tools as well. See how it easily tells me whether I'm line to the top, line to the bottom, line to the left, and whether I'm equidistant in terms of placing my shapes. Let's say I wanted to place another template. I'm just going to wheel backwards to zoom out. I'm just going to hit my More Options button and go back to Templates. Maybe this time I want a Kanban, so I'll search my templates for Kanban. So if you're trying to find something in particular, use the search option. I'll click on Kanban and I'll use this template. It wants to know where I want to put it, so maybe I want to put it at the top here. And again it zooms in. So I can zoom out, I can zoom in. Now as far as moving around, you notice that you don't really have scroll bars. So that's this little hand here. It's called Pan or Alt H. But if I choose the Pan option, I can now drag. I can just hold my mouse button down and drag around to actually pan around this particular page. And I can easily switch back to the arrow with Alt S or just clicking this option here. I have a pen option, so if you've got a stylus and you want to do some inking, you can hit this pen option here. You've got a black pen, a red pen, you've also got a bluish pen, a highlighter, you've also got this laser pointer, which is great when you're doing presentations. You've got the ability to erase, and you've got a ruler. Let's say I wanted to call up the ruler, so I'll click this. And here's the ruler here on a 45-degree angle. If I move my mouse wheel forward, I can make it go straight and end up on a 0-degree angle. I can then draw things with my highlighter, for example. Let me just go here, and I'll click the highlighter, and I'll just drag across the actual ruler. So I've got a nice straight highlighter line. If I felt that that highlighter was the wrong colour, I can click the highlighter and I can choose a different colour. I can also choose a different thickness, up to number 6, which is really thick. You've got to remember, I'm zoomed into 24%. And so the highlighter pens can be customised in terms of their weight, usually on 3, and in terms of their colour. Now when it comes to drawing lines, I can choose any of these pens. I might choose a red pen. And if I click this again, then I get to choose what colour pen, what degree of thickness, and degree of transparency or opaqueness. So I'll just choose a red pen, and I'll just move my ruler up, and I'll just drag along my ruler to draw a red line. If I get rid of my ruler just by pressing Alt-R or clicking this button, what I can do, for example, if I go back to the red pen, notice that I have a single arrow tip, Alt-A, but I also have a double arrow tip, Alt-Shift-A. Let's choose a double arrow tip. I'll click this option. I'll then decide to draw a double-headed arrow. Now if I hold the Shift key, it means it will draw a perfectly straight line, and I really don't have to concentrate. And if I move my mouse wheel forward, I can see more closely what I'm drawing. If I then want to draw another double-headed arrow, I just drag down, holding the Shift key, and it makes a perfectly straight line. If I want a single-headed arrow, I'll go this way, and if I want a blue pen, I'll go this way, and then if I hold the Shift key and drag, let me just get rid of that, hold the Shift key and drag, I can do a perfectly straight single arrowhead. Notice also the little symbol here says that I've got a single arrow chosen. If I was to click and choose a double-headed arrow, that symbol would appear. And if I was to turn the arrowheads off by choosing this option, I get neither a single nor a double-headed arrow appearing. So the drawing tools are really, really good. And if I want to rub out what I've done, I can actually click this option once or click it twice, and I can choose to erase a partial stroke or the entire stroke. Let's say I want to erase a partial, so I'm just going to erase this bit here, and notice it's just erasing part of the line, not all of the line. If I wanted to erase the entire line, I would say erase entire stroke, and then I just click and the entire stroke's gone. Click and the entire stroke's gone. The other thing is you do have undo, and you have more than one level of undo. So if I click this option, I can undo, 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 and basically go back through various things. And this option up here above is redo, and I can redo. But I'll undo to this point. If I go back to the inking options, I also have a laser pointer, which is Alt-L, which is really handy when I'm doing a presentation of this particular diagram to use this laser pointer and focus people where I am. Now just turn it off by hitting the arrow. So the arrow allows me to select things. The hand allows me to pan and move around my whiteboard. This inking option provides me with a variety of inking tools, and I can close that. This option allows me to add notes. So let me just wind back on my mouse wheel. Let me just pan over a little bit here. And let me go to this option. This option provides me with a variety of note colors. So I could choose to add a green note and just click somewhere, and I could start typing. Or if I click this option and click here, I could start typing. If I wasn't happy with the color, I could click this option and change the color. If I wanted to type something, I would just click and start typing. If I go Control A and select that text, I can then choose this option and ask for it to appear handwritten or professional. I could click this option and ask for it to be bold, italic, and or underlined. And if I click this option, I can actually add a comment to this particular text box. And it's sitting there with my initials that people can now rest on, click, and see my comment and reply to my comment. I can click this option and actually delete the thread or edit the comment, but I'll delete it. So leave comments for people. If you want more than one note, you can ask for a collection of notes, and that's what this option here is. If I click this option and then I click here, I can then click here, and I've got now a collection of notes that people can add to. And they can add further notes if they wish. Let me just pan over here. Let me just move this. So I pan, go back to my arrow, move this, pop it over here, and I can add more notes if I wish. I can even go into here and give it a title. I have a group of notes. If I then fit to screen, you may notice when we actually added, let me just pan down here, when we actually added this template, and let me just zoom in here, it came with a collection of notes that we moved over to the right here. So these notes came with this template, but I'm able to go back to a single note. I'm able to click this option here, and I can add further notes and just move them and place them where I like them, and then close the notes. One of the things I like to teach is the differences perhaps between cart. Let me just double click, Control A, change this to cart, and let me just click Control A, change this to copy. And what I like to do is create little notes that say the shortcut key is Control X. And then my learners would decide which circle does this belong in. Does it belong in copy, or does it belong in cut? Or what I might do if I click this and ask to duplicate this and put it down here and edit this to say paste, does it belong in this area? But of course Control X is used to cut, so they put it here. I can then, if I want to, hit this little thumbs up and give them a reaction that I'm happy about that, or I love that idea, or maybe I need them to think about that. So you can give a reaction to these. But you've also got reactions down here. I can add a reaction and I can choose a tick, a star, thumbs up, or even applaud them. If I click applause and then click here, I can then go back to my arrow and I've added an applause reaction to this particular idea, and I can even resize it. So add reactions to the brainstorming ideas or the information that's been presented on the whiteboard. Another thing you've got here is actually adding comments. If I click this option and I click here, I can add a comment just like I did earlier, saying what shapes would go in here, and post it, to which people can then reply and tell me what shapes, or I can ask a question. For example, let me just edit this. What is the shortcut key? And then they can reply. But somebody else might reply. And then somebody else might reply. Now I know I'm doing all the replying, but if this was a collaborative environment and there was a number of people in here, we would actually all have our initials showing and our names showing, so we would know who was saying what. So how do we know that it's going to identify authors? Let's go back to the settings option in the top here and we'll go to authors. And I like it to show me who the authors are. Each note on the whiteboard actually displays the name of the original author and the latest editor, so you know who said what. I wouldn't turn that off. And then I just close that. So think about it in a collaborative setting. But if you just want to add text, you've also just got this text box here, and you can just click that, click anywhere, and just add text anywhere. And again, if I go Control A, you've got various options like the text color, the text size, bold, italic, and underline, things like that. I can easily resize, make it bigger, and I can easily drag it and reposition it. You can also add shapes with this option here. There's various shapes such as connector lines, but also you've got like a pentagon, a triangle, a diamond, a rhomboid, an arrow, a circle, a rectangle, and an oval, or a tube. If I click tube, for example, and click, I can then resize it and I can start typing. And this might be the start of a flow diagram. If I then add another shape and just click here and resize it, this might be a process. And then if I click this option, I can drag from this to this, and I'm creating an arrow. I can then click on that shape and I can drag the ends of it and connect it to various points in my diagram. What I also might like to do is add some images. So let me just wheel out. Let me click the More Options button here, and we've got images. I can either grab them from Bing or I can upload them from something that I've got on my machine. But if I go to Bing Images, maybe I'm writing about saving to the cloud. So I want an image of a cloud. And then I'll just click an option, insert it, and I've inserted a cloud onto my page. I can then move that cloud and place it and resize it effectively. You'll notice also whenever you click on an object, you have the ability to copy it and paste it. You have the ability to delete it, and you often have more options in here, such as duplicating it, bringing it forward, sending it back if you want to create layers. I often have to send something to the back so that my students can grab a comment or a note and put it on top. So be aware that you may have to create layers when you click on certain objects. I particularly do this with mine. You may even ask it to lock so that they can't move it and they can't resize it. It's just locked in place, and so that's really handy. So often I'll get a picture of a screen and I'll ask them to drag various notes next door to the part of the screen to identify the parts of the screen, and I want that screen image to just be locked and stay there without the students being able to accidentally delete it. So let me just zoom in a little bit. Now, when I actually share this, I like to turn on the follow me. When I choose follow me, it means that all the participants in that Teams meeting or that are seeing this particular whiteboard, they can see me moving around. And they can easily follow me as I'm talking because they are not having to try and find where I'm looking or what I'm referring to. It will actually allow them to visually follow me as I move around this diagram. And then when I choose stop follow, that's when they can start moving around independently and looking at things themselves. If I want to share this with participants, I've got a share option here, and I can simply invite people to share this with me. I can add their names, their emails, or their group, add a message. I can send them a link, or I can actually just copy the link and maybe put it somewhere, maybe in a Teams chat or anywhere. I can go into the link settings. I can say that they can just view it or they can edit it so we can collaborate on it. And so there's various settings there that we're quite used to from other applications. So you can share this quite easily with others and hit send. If at any stage I want to switch to another whiteboard option, I've got this little home which takes me to the home of Microsoft Whiteboard. And here's example like this one here, Excel screen. This example is, you can see a picture here. I might click on it and I might actually lock it so they can't accidentally pull it and drag it. And so what I do here is I ask them to drag the labels and drop them next door to the various parts of the screen. I'll first of all explain it to them by turning follow me on, and they'll follow me and I'll explain how it works. Then I'll stop following and I'll allow them to drag these options and put them next door to the parts of the screen. Or if they're quite proficient, I might ask them to also choose a pen, such as a red pen, choose an arrow, hold the shift key, and actually point at the part of the screen that is the quick access toolbar. And then I'll dive back again to my home. So I mentioned that Microsoft Whiteboard can be called up through the app launcher using office.com on your web browser, or you can get a desktop version of Microsoft Whiteboard for free. But also where I use it probably the most is when I'm having a team session. So let's say I opened up a meeting now and I just started a meeting. And let's say I join now. And I'm going to now, let me just close this. I'm now going to share, and this is where you get the option whiteboard. So if I share my whiteboard in a meeting with my students, I can now call up those whiteboards that I created earlier, and I can ask them to follow me. So I might bring up the Excel screen again, for example. My students can follow me and they can see me moving around. And if I then want them to stop following, they can then move around and they can add and they can zoom in and they can move the actual options around themselves. Oops, let me just pan. So when you're having a meeting, it's a really handy tool. I can go back to home, I can create a new whiteboard, and maybe I want to have a brainstorming session and I can use some of these options. I could use this template. Pop it here, and in our meeting we can have a brainstorming session using this template, and everybody can either follow me and have a look or can collaborate and start putting things themselves, and I can watch their cursors moving around with their names showing as they collaborate. I can also set a timer that they only collaborate on it for 5 minutes and then they come back to me, so that's handy as well. So Microsoft Whiteboard, have a look at it. It's really great as a collaboration tool and a learning tool and a development tool. I'm Cathi Barker. Ka kite.